Hello aspirants, welcome to Daily UPSC Current Affairs Revision Series by Insights IAS. In today's session, we'll cover Cess, the Sprite Tejas Express, the Indonesian Babirusa, Kerala's renaming to Keralam, and the One Herb One Standard initiative, and in mapping, we'll explore the Panama Canal. So, without any further delay, let's get started. Let's kick things off with a topic that touches your wallet every time you fill up petrol, Cess. Here's the context. The Himachal Pradesh government imposed a widow and orphan cess of 60 paise per litre on petrol and high-speed diesel. Now, you've probably seen this word cess tucked into your payslip or a fuel receipt without really thinking about what it means. So let's unpack it properly. A cess is a specialized, targeted tax levied by the government over and above basic taxes to generate revenue for a specific predetermined purpose. Think education, road development, or worker welfare. And here's the defining feature that separates it from every other tax. Once the earmarked objective is fulfilled, the cess is meant to be discontinued. It's not supposed to live forever. It's governed under Article 270 of the Constitution of India. And here's a genuinely important consequence of that: exclusion from the divisible pool. Under Article 270, revenues collected through union cesses and surcharges are excluded from the divisible pool of taxes shared between the centre and the states. The central government keeps 100% of its collected cess revenues without devolving them through Finance Commission recommendations. Hold that fact tightly. It's exactly why states sometimes complain when the centre leans heavily on cesses instead of regular taxes. So who can actually impose one? The central government imposes nationwide cesses through parliamentary legislation, and state governments hold constitutional powers too, under the state list and the concurrent list, to levy specific welfare or development cesses on state-level subjects like motor spirits, land, and local infrastructure. Exactly the route Himachal Pradesh took here. Its aim, in essence, is to create a dedicated, non-lapsable pool of funds for a specific social or infrastructural priority without relying on general budget allocations. Let's walk through what actually makes a cess a cess. There's purpose-bound earmarking, funds raised are ring-fenced and simply cannot be diverted to general administrative overheads or unrelated expenditure. There's flexible calculation. It can be calculated either as a tax on tax or as a flat per unit surcharge, exactly like this 60 paise per litre figure. There's non-lapsable fund allocation. Cess proceeds go into dedicated statutory funds, so unused money carries forward instead of vanishing at year-end. And states frequently use fuel sales as a convenient base for welfare cesses. Take Kerala's rupees 2 per litre social security cess, or Himachal Pradesh's 60 paise per litre widow and orphan cess. Now, how does a cess actually differ from a regular tax? On utilization, a general tax goes into the consolidated fund for general expenditure, salaries, defense, administration, while a cess stays strictly ring-fenced for its specific statutory purpose. On interstate sharing, general taxes get shared between centre and states via the Finance Commission's divisible pool, but a cess is kept entirely by whichever government levied it. Union cesses aren't shared with the states at all. On continuity, a tax is meant to be permanent, while a cess is meant to be temporary, ending once its goal is met. And on the imposition base, a tax hits income, profits, or transactions directly, while a cess sits on top of a base tax, either as a percentage or a flat fee. So, to quickly recap for your exam, a cess is governed under Article 270, excluded entirely from the centre-state divisible pool, and both the union and state governments can impose one on their respective subjects. Remember, it's meant to be temporary and purpose-bound, unlike a regular tax, and Himachal's 60 paise widow and orphan cess joins examples like Kerala's rupees 2 social security cess as a state-level fuel-based welfare levy. Now here's a topic that's genuinely a first for Indian Railways, and honestly kind of fun: the Sprite Tejas Express. The context: Indian Railways and IRCTC awarded full commercial train branding rights for the Lucknow-Delhi-Lucknow Tejas Express to the beverage brand Sprite for 6 months. Picture that, an entire train carrying a soft drink brand's name in its station announcements. So what exactly is this? The Sprite Tejas Express is India's first privately branded, fully air-conditioned corporate superfast train operated by IRCTC, featuring full external and internal brand advertising rights. It runs between Lucknow Junction and New Delhi under the operational supervision of the North Eastern Railway Zone using Indian Railways infrastructure. IRCTC operates it, paying haulage charges to Indian Railways, and the branding partner is MS Sprite, part of the Coca-Cola company. The whole point, honestly, is to commercialize train branding, generating non-fare revenue for IRCTC and Indian Railways, while still offering high-speed, modern amenities on a busy intercity route. What actually makes this train different? For one, it's the first branded train name, marking the first time in Indian Railways history that a scheduled train service carries a commercial corporate brand name in its station audio and visual announcements. On board, you'll find modern LHB coaches, extensive food and beverage catering, and personalized infotainment. There's also a group booking provision, letting corporate groups, wedding parties, or event travelers book an entire AC chair car coach that's 78 seats as one single block. And it runs semi-high speed, operating 6 days a week, covering roughly 512 kilometers between Lucknow and Delhi in about 6 hours and 15 minutes. So, to quickly recap, the Sprite Tejas Express is India's first commercially branded train, running the Lucknow-Delhi route in about 6 hours 15 minutes under IRCTC with Sprite as the branding partner for 6 months. Remember the group booking feature for the entire 78-seat coach, and that this deal represents a genuine push toward non-fare revenue for Indian Railways. Let's shift gears now to something genuinely heartwarming from the animal kingdom, the Indonesian Babirusa. The context: Chester Zoo in the UK announced the birth of Rana, a rare Babirusa piglet, amid declining wild populations, threatened by African swine fever, habitat loss, and hunting in Indonesia. So, what exactly is a Babirusa? The Babirusa, genus Babirusa, commonly known as the pig deer, is one of the oldest living and strangest wild pig species around. Its name comes from the Malay language, and it genuinely describes its distinctive look and stag-like upper tusks, hence pig deer. It's endemic exclusively to 4 Indonesian islands: Sulawesi, Togian, Sula, and Buru, nowhere else on Earth. It inhabits tropical rainforests, swamps, and wetlands, often near riverbanks and ponds rich in aquatic plants. And its IUCN status is vulnerable. Now let's get into what makes this creature so genuinely bizarre and fascinating. Male Babirusa possess upper canine teeth that grow upward, pierce through the skin of their own snout, and curve backward toward their forehead, a feature found in no other pig species anywhere. It also has small litters and a long gestation. Unlike standard pigs that produce large litters, female Babirusas give birth to just 1 or 2 piglets after a highly predictable 155 to 161-day gestation period. They're sparse-haired too, and unstriped piglets. They have barrel-shaped bodies with bristly, nearly hairless grey-brown skin, and uniquely among wild pigs, newborn Babirusa piglets lack the protective camouflage stripes most baby wild pigs are born with. They're agile omnivorous foragers, using specialized hooves to dig for roots and insect larvae, standing on their hind legs to reach high leaves, and running at speeds up to 30 miles per hour. And they show distinct behaviors and scent marking, being solitary or living in small social groups, communicating through grunts and tooth clattering, and practicing an unusual plowing behavior, kneeling and pushing their heads through soft sand while foaming at the mouth. On significance, Babirusas aid seed dispersal and forest regeneration, making them a genuine indicator species for ecosystem health. And here's a lovely cultural detail. This is an ancient pig lineage depicted in prehistoric Indonesian cave art. So captive breeding, like Rana's birth at Chester Zoo, provides a genuine genetic safeguard against extinction. So, to quickly recap, the Babirusa is a vulnerable pig species, endemic to just 4 Indonesian islands, known for its male's tusks that pierce through their own snout. Remember, it produces only 1 or 2 piglets after a 155 to 161-day gestation, and Rana's birth at Chester Zoo strengthens the genetic safety net for a species facing African swine fever, habitat loss, and hunting. Now, let's move to a genuinely significant piece of legislation that touches identity and federalism. Parliament renaming Kerala as Keralam. The context: Parliament passed the Kerala Alteration of Name Bill 2026, officially renaming Kerala as Keralam, following a unanimous resolution by the State Legislative Assembly. What exactly is this bill? It's a parliamentary law that amends the first schedule of the Constitution of India to change the official name of the state from Kerala to Keralam, aligning the English legal name with its native Malayalam pronunciation and cultural heritage. Now, which constitutional provisions come into play here? There's Article 3 of the Constitution, which empowers Parliament by law to form new states, alter state boundaries, or change the name of any existing state. And there's a First Schedule Amendment. This modifies Entry 15 of the First Schedule, which lists the names and territorial extents of all the states. Let's walk through exactly how a state's name actually gets changed, because this procedure is genuinely worth knowing step by step. It begins with a state resolution. Typically, a state legislative assembly passes a formal resolution requesting the center to alter the state's official name. Then comes a presidential recommendation. A bill proposing the name change can only be introduced in either House of Parliament on the prior recommendation of the President of India. Before that recommendation, there's a reference to the state legislature. The President refers the bill to the affected state assembly to express its views within a specified time frame. And here's a genuinely important nuance: non-binding state views, while consulting the state assembly is mandatory to uphold cooperative federalism, the views expressed by the state assembly are not binding on either the President or Parliament. The centre can still proceed even if the state disagrees. Once that referral period expires or views come back, the bill is formally introduced in Parliament. And on passage, this is exactly the kind of detail that trips people up. As specified under Article 4, the bill is treated as an ordinary bill and must pass both houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, with a simple majority, 50% plus one of members present and voting, not a special majority. Finally, upon presidential assent and gazette notification, the Act comes into force, formally modifying the first schedule and altering the state's legal name. On significance, this restores the native Malayalam name Keralam, reflecting the state's cultural identity. And it genuinely reflects cooperative federalism, with Parliament acting on a unanimous State Assembly resolution rather than imposing a change unilaterally. So, to quickly recap, Kerala officially became Keralam through the Kerala Alteration of Name Bill 2026, passed under Article 3 with a simple majority as specified under Article 4. Remember, state views during the presidential referral process are consultative, not binding, and this amendment modifies Entry 15 of the first schedule of the Constitution. Now, let's move to a genuinely important quality control initiative for India's herbal medicine sector, the One Herb, One Standard (OHOS) initiative. The context: the Ministry of Ayush and the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare renewed their partnership under this initiative for an additional 3 years. So, what exactly is OHOS? It's an interministerial collaborative framework designed to establish unified, scientifically synchronized quality and testing standards called monographs for medicinal plants used across different systems of medicine in India. Think about it. The same herb might currently be tested differently depending on whether it's being sold as an Ayurvedic product or under modern pharmacopoeial standards. This initiative fixes exactly that inconsistency. 2 organizations implement this. The Pharmacopoeia Commission for Indian Medicine and Homeopathy (PCIM&H) sits under the Ministry of Ayush, and the Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission (IPC) is an autonomous body under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Its aim is to eliminate conflicting quality parameters across different pharmacopoeias, establishing single, clear, and scientifically reliable standards for medicinal herbs to improve the quality, safety, and international credibility of Indian botanical products. Let's look at what this initiative actually does. There's harmonized quality standards, synchronizing testing methods, and quality parameters for identical medicinal plants across the Indian Pharmacopoeia, IP, and the Ayurvedic, Siddha, Unani, and homeopathic, ASU and H, pharmacopoeias. There's phase-wise monograph development, building on the successful first phase, which produced 50 single herb monographs initiated back in 2022. There's cross-system integration too, applying universally to single drugs of plant origin used across 5 recognized systems: Ayurveda, Siddha, Sovarikpa, Unani, and homeopathy. Hold that list of 5 firmly. It's exactly the kind of enumeration UPSC likes testing. There's alignment with global benchmarks, integrating international quality parameters alongside Indian standards, so Indian botanical monographs can meet global trade and regulatory demands. And there are streamlined testing protocols, giving testing labs, regulators, and manufacturers a single reference standard, rather than juggling conflicting analytical requirements. On significance, this genuinely eases doing business and boosts exports, reducing regulatory ambiguity and simplifying testing and compliance for Indian botanicals. And it strengthens global acceptance of Ayush products, since internationally aligned standards improve the safety, credibility, and export potential of Indian herbal products. So, to quickly recap, OHOS harmonizes herbal quality standards between the Ayush Run PCIM and H and the Health Ministry's IPC, applying across 5 systems: Ayurveda, Siddha, Sovarikpa, Unani, and homeopathy. Remember, its first phase produced 50 single herb monographs starting in 2022, and this partnership has now been renewed for 3 more years. Finally, let's turn to today's mapping topic, and this one's a genuinely fascinating piece of engineering under real commercial pressure right now: the Panama Canal. The context: a container ship recently paid nearly $4 million just to bypass a 10-day Panama Canal queue amid surging shipping demand, Middle East diversions, and drought-related transit restrictions. Just sit with that figure for a second: $4 million to skip a line. So, what exactly is the Panama Canal? It's an artificial 50-mile or 82 kilometers lock-type waterway cutting across the narrow Isthmus of Panama. It connects the Atlantic Ocean via the Caribbean Sea with the Pacific Ocean, and it serves as one of the world's most critical maritime transit choke points. On location and governance, it sits at 9 degrees north latitude in Central America, across the Isthmus of Panama, connecting Colón on the Atlantic side to Balboa and Panama City on the Pacific side. And it's solely owned, operated, and administered by the Autonomous Panama Canal Authority, ACP, an agency of the Government of Panama. Now let's walk through its history, because there's a genuinely dramatic sovereignty story here. It was built by the United States Army Corps of Engineers and officially opened on the 15th of August 1914. It then saw a transition of sovereignty, jointly administered under the Panama Canal Commission from 1979 until full control was finally handed over to Panama on the 31st of December 1999. Hold that date firmly. There was also a third set of locks expansion, opened in June 2016, the Neo-Panamax locks, accommodating larger, deeper draft vessels and integrating water-saving basins that recycle 60% of lockage water. Let's understand the key features of how this canal actually works. There's a gravity-fed freshwater lock system operating without pumps, relying entirely on natural gravity flow from artificial freshwater lakes, primarily Gatun Lake and Alajuela Lake, both fed by the Chagres River. There's step lock elevation, using a series of locks, Gatun on the Atlantic side, Pedro Miguel and Miraflores on the Pacific side, to lift ships 85 feet or 26 meters above sea level over the continental divide via the Gayard or Culebra Cut. Genuinely think about that. Ships are physically lifted up and over land, then lowered back down on the other side. There are also electric towing locomotives, nicknamed mules. Trains riding on cog tracks along the lock walls guide large vessels through the original lock chambers, keeping them centered and preventing hull collisions. There are water-saving Neo-Panamax basins. The 2016 expansion locks use 182 million liters of water per transit, but capture and recycle 60% of that water in adjacent basins to minimize lake depletion. And there's an auction and reservation slot mechanism. While regular transits follow pre-booked slots, the ACP also runs a competitive daily auction system, allowing non-reserved vessels to bid high premiums to bypass multi-day queues, exactly the mechanism behind that $4 million payment in today's context. On global significance, the canal avoids the lengthy Cape Horn route, saving up to 8,000 nautical miles and weeks of travel. And it carries around 3 to 5% of global maritime trade, including energy, agricultural commodities, and manufactured goods. So, to quickly recap, the Panama Canal opened in 1914 and handed to full Panamanian control on the 31st of December 1999, lifts ships 85 feet above sea level using a gravity-fed lock system. Remember, Gatun, Pedro, Miguel, and Miraflores are its three key locks. The 2016 Neo-Panamax expansion recycles 60% of its water, and ships can pay premium auction fees, sometimes millions of dollars, to skip the regular queue. And that brings us to the end of today's session. In today's session, we covered Cess from GS Paper 3, Economy, the Sprite Tejas Express from Miscellaneous, an important topic for the UPSC Prelims examination, the Indonesian Babirusa from GS Paper 3, Environment and Biodiversity, the renaming of Kerala to Keralam from GS Paper 2, Polity, the One Herb, One Standard initiative from GS Paper 2, Government Initiatives in Health, and the Panama Canal under Mapping. For the complete current affairs article and today's practice MCQs, visit insightsonindia.com using the link given in the description. Also, subscribe to the Insights IAS YouTube channel and join our official Telegram group for regular UPSC-related updates and learning resources. Thank you for joining us today, and we will see you again in the next session.